Listen, K-Fam. The listening device was hidden inside a shard of broken glass. Selah Freeman never planned to work inside a Mafia mansion. She's black, 30, a live-in caregiver who spent years looking after her uncle Marcus. She lost her hotel laundry wage, 10 days to eviction, so she answered a listing. Then she met the man who ruled that house. Han Song-jin, graphite suit, signet ring, a dark Korean tiger tattoo climbing the right side of his neck, vanishing under the collar. But her charge was someone else. Han Do-yoon, paraplegic heir, custom wheelchair, his mother's ring on his hand. At lunch, he named her Advance. Then he knocked a crystal goblet to the floor. "Clean it," he ordered. She knelt, not to obey, to shield his wheels, and there, on a single shard, she saw it, a tiny device, IU. Someone was listening. He demanded she hand it over. He admitted the smashing was a test, and the sabotaged furniture, the blocked ramps, the altered schedules, those were only the beginning. Omo, K-Fam. What she uncovered next was never meant to leave that house. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. Selah Freeman counted the coins twice because the machine only took quarters and she was one short. Third floor laundry room, hotel basement, the industrial dryers roaring behind her like a runway. She dug through the olive green crossbody bag, past the folded eviction notice she hadn't let herself reread, and found a dime and 2 pennies. Not a quarter. She stood there a second, the dryer she needed still open, its door hanging like a mouth. "Freeman," the voice came from the doorway, her supervisor, clipboard against her hip. "Office, now." Selah slid the coins back into the bag. She'd learned that word, now, the way you learn a dog's growl. It never meant good. The office wasn't an office. A supply closet with a desk wedged in, detergent drums stacked to the ceiling, the chemical suite of them thick enough to taste. The supervisor didn't sit, so Selah didn't either. "They're cutting the laundry contract," the woman said, "outsourcing to the plant in Vernon. Corporate signed it last week." "Last week? I found out this morning same as you." Selah's hand went flat against the desk, not a slam, just flat, fingers spread, the way you steady yourself on a subway car when the brakes hit. "When's my last day?" "Friday." 4 days. She did the math without meaning to. It was a reflex now. Everything became a number of days. "Severance?" The supervisor's mouth did something apologetic. "You were seasonal on the books. There's no—" She stopped. "I'm sorry, Selah. You're the best folder I ever had. That's not nothing." It was nothing. Folding was nothing. Selah picked up her bag. "You could talk to Vernon," the supervisor said, quieter now, offering it like a coin. "The plant, they're hiring line staff. I could put in a word." "Vernon's 2 hours each way on the bus." Selah settled the strap across her chest. "I've got somebody at home. Can't wait 2 hours for me if something goes wrong." The woman nodded like she'd known that. Everybody at the hotel knew about the uncle. Selah had never made it a secret, just never made it a story either. It was the reason she took the shifts nobody wanted, the reason she never once clocked out late, the reason she folded fast enough to leave the second the whistle went. "There's a check through Friday," the woman called after her. "Pick it up at the front desk end of shift." Selah didn't answer. The hallway swallowed her, fluorescent and endless, and she walked it fast, boots loud on the sealed concrete, the laced brown leather scuffed pale at the toes. 12 years those boots had walked her out of rooms like that. She wasn't going to cry in a hallway that smelled like bleach. She had cried in worse and gotten less for it. Outside, the LA heat hit like an open oven. She stood at the bus stop and pulled the eviction notice out anyway. 10 days. 10. Printed in a font somebody chose to look gentle and landed cruel. Failure to remit past due rent in the amount of $2,140. Vacate the premises within 10 days of this notice. The date at the top was 3 days old, so 7, really. 7 days and a laundry job that died on Friday. She folded it back into fourths along the creases it already had. The bus came. She got on. Her apartment was a 1-bedroom in Koreatown. She'd turned into a 2-bedroom with a curtain and a promise. Behind the curtain, in the room that used to be a dining nook, her Uncle Marcus lived in a wheelchair and a good mood he refused to lose. "There she is," he said, before she was fully through the door. He was at the window, chair angled to catch the last light, a plaid shirt buttoned wrong by one hole. "You're early. They let you out early?" Something like that. She dropped her bag on the counter and went to him and fixed the button before he noticed she'd noticed. 55 years old, arms still strong enough to lift himself, the leather bracelet on his wrist gone soft as skin. He'd raised her from 12. Her mother had gone one way and her father another, and Marcus, her father's brother, had simply shown up with a duffel bag and stayed. Then the accident took his legs 8 years back, and she'd shown up for him the same way. That was the deal in their family. You showed up. "You ate?" she asked. "I was waiting on you. Don't change the subject." "There's no subject." He wheeled a quarter turn so he could see her full. His eyes, warm and unhurried, did the thing they did. Read her like the back of a cereal box. Selah. "They cut the contract, Uncle Marcus." She said it plain because he hated soft. "Friday's my last day." He was quiet a moment. Then, okay, we've done worse than Friday. We haven't done this, and the rent in the same week." His jaw moved. He looked at the window. That letter came then. She hadn't told him about the letter. He'd seen the envelope or heard her not talking about it, which with Marcus was the same as a confession. There was no lying to a man who'd taught her to lie. 10 days on the letter, she said. 7 now. She sat on the arm of the couch, close to him. "It's fine. I'll figure it. I always figure it. You always figure it, because you never let it be my problem too. It's not your... I know what my SISD is to the dollar, baby girl. I know exactly what I bring in and what I don't." He reached over and put his hand on her knee, and his hand was heavy and certain. "Don't you dare figure it alone. Not this one." She put her hand over his, because she didn't have words that wouldn't crack. They ate. She made rice and the eggs the way he liked, folded soft, a little soy, and he told a story she'd heard 40 times about a man he'd worked construction with in the 90s who could balance a full coffee cup on the back of his hand up a scaffold. She laughed in the right places. That was a job too, the laughing, and she was good at it, and she did it clean so he'd never see the seam. He watched her wash the pan and dry it and hang it on the nail, and she felt him watching, and she let him. Then she got him into the chair he slept in near the window, the transfer smooth, her hips doing the lift, his hand catching her shoulder out of habit though he didn't need it anymore, and she tucked the blanket the way he pretended he didn't like. 2,000, he said into the dark, not a question. "And change. I've got 400 in the coffee can. That's your emergency. Baby girl." His voice found her in the dark. "What do you think this is?" That night, after he was down, she sat on the bathroom floor with her phone, the only door in the apartment with a lock, the only place she let her face do what it wanted, and she looked for work, any work. She'd cleaned, folded, filed, stocked, waited tables, cut hair for cash on the side back when. She typed fast. Overnight, cash, immediate. Live-in. She almost scrolled past it. Live-in caregiver, private residence, discretion essential, Experience with mobility assistance required. Room and board included. Compensation well above market for the right person. No agency. No references from clinical networks. Serious inquiries only. Room and board included. She read that line 4 times. Room and board included meant a roof that wasn't this one, wasn't 10 days deep in a hole. Compensation well above market meant the number might be a number that mattered. And the strangest line, the one she kept circling, no references from clinical networks. Most listings begged for clinical references. This one refused them. She should have wondered harder about why. What she wondered instead was whether well above market could clear $2,140, and how fast. She checked the address bar the way Marcus had taught her, looked for the padlock, looked for the trap, found none. Just a plain form, a plain box, a cursor blinking like it had all the time in the world. She wrote back that night. Kept it short. 12 years personal caregiving experience, full mobility assistance, transfers, medication schedules, wound care. Available immediately. Discreet. She didn't mention the eviction. She didn't mention the laundry. She didn't mention that the word discreet had made her sit up straighter, because a family that paid for silence was a family with something worth being silent about, and a woman 7 days from the curb couldn't afford to be picky about whose secrets kept her housed. She sent it, and set the phone face down on the cold tile, and pressed both palms to her eyes until she saw sparks. The reply came at 6:41 the next morning, before her alarm. Interview today, 2 p.m., an address in a canyon she'd only ever seen from the freeway. Come alone. Wear what you'd work in. Wear what you'd work in. She stood in front of her closet a long time. Then she took down the ivory Henley t-shirt, the good one, the one with the small buttons that always sat right, and the straight-cut black jeans, and the boots. Small gold studs in her ears. She looked like herself. That was the point. If they wanted a costume, they could hire an actress. She fed Marcus, told him the half of it, an interview, private family, live-in, and watched him decide not to say the thing on his face. Go get it, he said instead. Then come tell me everything. The address took 2 buses and a climb. The last stretch was a private road with no sidewalk, oaks leaning over it, the air suddenly cooler and greener than the city she'd left 40 minutes below, then a gate. Then, past the gate, the house, low and long and pale, glass where walls should be, the kind of quiet that costs money to keep. A car she didn't have a name for sat in the drive, black, waxed to a mirror. A woman was waiting at the door before Selah reached it. Small, firm. Maybe 5'2" in flat shoes, and standing like she was taller. Black hair with silver run through it, pulled into a low bun so tight it looked ironed. A dark dress, a gray apron of the kind that meant she worked and worked seriously, and at her collar a brooch, old, gold, a single stone gone milky with age. Her eyes went over Selah once, top to boots, and did not pretend otherwise. Miss Freeman. Yes, ma'am. Kim Hae-suk. She stepped back to let her in, but not far, so Selah had to angle past her, close, the way you're led into a place that hasn't decided about you yet. You came alone. You said to. People say a great many things they don't do. She led her down a hall floored in wide pale wood, past rooms Selah didn't turn to look into, because she could feel that not looking was being counted too. A kitchen opened up, enormous, cold clean, a kettle already on. Kim gestured to a stool. She did not sit across. She stood, hands folded at her apron. 12 years, she said. It wasn't a question. She had the email memorized. Yes, ma'am. 8 of them with my uncle. He uses a chair. Family isn't experience. Family is the only experience that doesn't let you quit, Selah said, and then wished she'd softened it, then decided she didn't. Something moved behind the older woman's eyes. Not a smile. A note taken. Transfers, Kim said. Bed to chair to car, chair to bath. Alone. Show me the hold. Selah stood. There was no one to lift, so she made her arms the shape of it, the wide brace under the arms, the pivot from the hips, not the back, the foot she'd plant to stop a slide. She'd done it 10,000 times in the dark. Kim watched her hands, only her hands. Again, he fights you. He doesn't want the bath. Selah adjusted. Lower, slower, one hand freeing to hold a shoulder, her whole body turning it from a lift into a decision the other person got to make with her. You don't win it, she said, mostly to herself. You give him a way to say yes. Kim's hands unfolded and refolded. She stepped closer and did a thing Selah didn't expect. Reached out and turned Selah's right hand palm up, held it flat in both of her small dry ones, and studied it. The callus at the base of the fingers from the folding tables. The old burn scar on the wrist from a hospital laundry press years back. The short, clean nails of a woman who worked with her hands and knew hands mattered. You cut hair, Kim said. It wasn't in the email. Selah went still. Long time ago. For cash. How? The way you hold another person's weight without gripping. Kim let the hand go. People who've cut hair learn it. You steer, you don't grab. He will hate to be grabbed. She stepped back to her place at the counter. Where were you trained? Kitchens. Hospitals I cleaned in. My uncle's doctors, when they'd let me watch. She met the woman's eyes. Nowhere with a certificate, if that's the question. It is not the question. Kim poured the tea, 2 cups, and slid one across, and that small act shifted the room. Selah was, for the length of a cup, a guest. You have no ties to the medical networks in this city, no agency, no clinic. You've never worked for one of the family practices, and it's the private ones, the concierge groups. No, ma'am. Couldn't afford to be their patient, let alone their staff. Good. Kim said it fast, and then heard herself, and pressed her lips. It is what the position requires. Discretion. A person with no other loyalties in this town. Selah wrapped both hands around the cup. It was too hot. She held it anyway. Loyalties to who? Loyal about what? Kim didn't answer that. She looked at Selah's boots again. The pale, scuffed toes, the honest wear of them, and something in the old woman's shoulders let down a half-inch. The person you'd care for is particular, she said. Proud. He will test you. He will try to make you quit inside a week so he can tell his family he was right that you'd quit. Most do. She turned the brooch a quarter turn with 2 fingers, a habit, an old comfort. The ones who don't quit, he makes their lives very difficult before he decides they can stay. How many have there been, Selah asked, before me? Kim's fingers found the brooch. This year? Sure. 4. She said the number without flinching, which was its own kind of flinch. The last one lasted 9 days. She was good. Certified, a real agency. Everyone said she was the best in the city. Kim's mouth thinned. That was the problem. The best in the city knows everyone in the city, and everyone in this city talks. Selah heard the shape under the words, even if she couldn't see the whole of it. Somebody in this house didn't want to be talked about. Somebody had learned the hard way that a good reputation was just a longer list of people who could sell you. He. Selah filed it. Not she. Not a child. Not an elder. A he who tested people. How old? That's not for me to say yet. Kim collected the cups, though Selah's was still full, and the guest minute was over. You'll hear by tonight. If you hear, you come tomorrow morning, 7, with a bag packed for a month, and you do not tell people where you've gone. Not friends. Not family. Selah stood. My uncle needs to know where I am. Your uncle? Kim stopped at the counter, back to her. He's in a chair. I'm all he's got. He needs a number that reaches me, and a name of a place. That's not negotiable. She heard her own voice do the flat hand thing, steady on the subway car. You want somebody with no loyalties. I've got exactly one. Everybody else in this town can wonder where I went. He doesn't wonder. The kitchen held very still. The kettle ticked as it cooled. Kim turned around. And now there was something on the small, firm face that hadn't been there. Not warmth, Selah wouldn't have believed warmth, but recognition, one person clocking another across a long distance. One number, Kim said. One name. He tells no one else. He tells no one. Then we understand each other. She walked Selah back down the pale hall, and at the door she paused, and looked out at the black car, and the gate, and the green quiet, and for a second, she looked older than 58, older than the brooch. Miss Freeman, when they call you tonight, and I think they will call you tonight, the number they name will be large. Larger than a job like this should pay. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Selah did the math she couldn't stop doing. $2,140. 7 days. A number larger than the job should pay. I understand it's enough, she said. That's not what I asked. But Selah was already through the door, already down the drive, already counting the enough of it against the days. And behind her, Kim Hae-suk stood in the doorway with her hand on the old brooch and watched the young woman in the ivory Henley walk toward the gate like she'd decided something the house hadn't offered her yet. The gate opened for her without anyone touching it. She stepped through and it closed behind her with a sound like a held breath let go. The buses back took longer. Selah didn't feel them. She got home at dusk and Marcus was at the window again, and he took one look at her face and wheeled toward the middle of the room to meet her. Well, he said, I think I got it. She sat down hard on the couch arm. I think I got it, Uncle Marcus. Then why do you look like that? She opened her mouth to tell him about the tea, the transfers, the woman with the brooch, the strange line about no clinical references, the he who tested people and made their lives difficult before deciding. All of it wanted out at once. Her phone rang. Unknown number, Canyon area code, 7:02 p.m., exactly the tonight Kim had promised. Marcus's eyes went to the phone in her hand, then to her face. He didn't tell her to answer. He didn't tell her not to. He just held still, the way he'd held still at the window, waiting to see which way the light would fall. Selah looked at the buzzing screen. A number larger than the job should pay. One loyalty. A bag packed for a month. 7 in the morning. Tell no one. She pressed the phone to her ear. This is Selah Freeman, she said. 7 in the morning, and the gate at the top of the canyon swung open before Selah's finger reached the panel. She stood there a second with her hand still raised, her mala heavy on her shoulder, the strap of the olive crossbody cutting a line across the Henley. Nobody had buzzed her in. The gate just knew. She stepped through, and it closed behind her with a soft mechanical certainty, like a mouth deciding to stay shut. Kim Hae-suk met her at the side door, not the front. That told Selah something already. Front doors were for guests. She was staff. You came with a month, Kim said, eyeing the bag. You said, a month. Good. Kim turned and walked, and Selah followed her down a hall lined with glass, the whole canyon spilling gold through it, and not one photograph on any wall. No faces. Rich people who erased their own faces from their own house. Selah filed it away and kept her boots quiet on the stone. They passed a kitchen that could have fed the hotel she'd been fired from. They passed a room with a piano nobody played, the lid closed and dust-free, which meant somebody dusted a piano nobody played. 2 men in dark suits stood at the far end of a corridor. one with something in his ear, and neither of them turned to look at her, which was somehow worse than if they had. In houses this size, the help usually nodded at each other. These men were not the kind of help that nodded. Selah counted doors out of habit, the way she counted exits in every new place since she was 12. 6 on the left, 4 on the right. A stairwell she wasn't shown. She logged them without slowing her boots. At the end of the hall, Kim stopped at a wide doorway and lowered her voice to almost nothing. He will test you today. Whatever he does, do not decide for him. That is the one thing the others never learned. Decide what for him? Anything. Kim's eyes flicked past her, down the hall, checking. You will understand in a minute. She knocked once, didn't wait, and pushed the door. The room was long and low, more glass, a desk, shelves of books with cracked spines that had actually been read, and in the center of it, turning toward the sound, a man in a wheelchair. Selah had cared for bodies her whole adult life. She knew the chair before she knew the man, a custom build, low-profile wheels, the frame matte black, the kind that cost more than her year of rent. Then she knew the man, 30, maybe, fair skin over a jaw you could cut bread on, dark eyes that landed on her and did not move, did not soften, did not do any of the polite things eyes do when they meet a stranger. A black shirt fitted close, forearms resting on the armrests, one of them marked with a small geometric tattoo, ink like a family crest folded into a shape. Igo. So this was the he. Nobody had said the word paraplegic. Not in the ad, not in the interview, not on the phone, at 19:02 the night before. Kim had let her walk 2 buses and a canyon into it blind. Selah felt the shape of that omission settle in her chest, and she did not let it reach her face. Han Do-yun, Kim said. This is Selah Freeman. He looked at her boots, then her jeans, then the Henley with its little buttons, then back to her eyes, and something in the corner of his mouth moved that was not a smile. He took his time about it. He looked at her the way a man looks at a thing that's been delivered to his house, turning it over, checking for damage, deciding whether to send it back. You dress like you're going to fix a fence, he said. His English was clean, edged. I dress like I'm going to work. Most of them come in scrubs, little cartoon animals on them, soft shoes. He tilted his head. They think if they look like a nurse, I'll feel like a patient. You're not a patient. No? A patient is somebody who's sick. But you're a man who uses a chair. Those aren't the same thing. She let the bag settle off her shoulder to the floor. I don't own any scrubs. Never have. My uncle's been in a chair 8 years. I never once put on a costume to sit with him. That landed somewhere. She saw it land. A flicker, quick, gone. He hadn't expected the person across from him to have a chair in her own house too. The corner of his mouth moved again. Kim exhaled, very slightly. A woman who'd watched 4 people fail this exact opening and had just heard something different. Lunch is at 1, Do-yun said, and turned his chair back toward the window. Done with them. She can watch me eat, see if she runs. Kim steered her out before Selah could answer. In the hall, Selah stopped. You didn't tell me. No. 12 years and you thought I'd flinch at a chair. Kim looked at her, and for the first time, the older woman's face opened a crack. It was never about you flinching, child. It was about whether you'd treat him like the chair was the thing that mattered. The last one apologized to him. First hour, apologized for his legs, like they were her fault. He had her gone by dinner. She smoothed her apron. Watch him at lunch. Do not carry anything for him he did not ask you to carry. She showed Selah the room, small, clean, a window facing the wrong way, away from the view, toward a wall of stone. Staff didn't get the canyon either. A bed, a chair, a shelf, a lamp that worked. More than the curtain-divided half of a 1-bedroom she'd left that morning, and less than she'd expected from a house that dusted pianos. Everything in it was replaceable. Nothing in it was hers. Selah set her bag down and did not unpack it. Unpacking was a way of believing you'd stay, and she'd learned young not to believe that until a place earned it. She took out one thing, a framed photo the size of a playing card, Marcus at a lake before the accident, standing, and stood it on the shelf. Then she texted him one line, a number and a name of a place, exactly as promised, and nothing else. His reply came in seconds. "You eat yet?" She almost smiled. 8 years she'd been feeding him, and he still asked her first. She washed her hands at the small sink, dried them on her own jeans out of habit, and went to learn her charge. Lunch was in a dining room with a table for 12 and 2 places set. His and, apparently, a chair against the wall for her, where she could watch and not eat. Fine, she'd eaten worse arrangements. He was already there when she came in, positioned at the head of the table, a place laid in front of him, white plate, folded cloth, and a single crystal goblet full of water, catching the light and throwing it in pieces across the linen. Kim brought 2 dishes and left. The door closed. It was just the 2 of them, and the sound of the house being quiet. Do-yeon didn't touch the food. He looked at Selah where she stood by the wall. "Sit down. You standing there like a guard makes my food taste like a prison." She sat. He watched her sit, cataloging it. "You want to know the number?" he said. "You'll tell me if you want me to know it." "The advance." He named it then. Flat, like reading a temperature. It was more money than Selah had held at one time in years. Enough to clear $2,140 and still breathe. Enough to walk into the rental office and put the whole thing on the counter and watch the woman's face change. Enough that her hands wanted to grip the edge of the chair, and she made them lie flat on her knees instead. She kept her eyes off the food and on him, and did not let the number do anything to her mouth. "Paid up front," he went on, "before you've done a single thing to earn it. My father's idea. He thinks money buys loyalty faster than time does." His eyes stayed on her. "Does it? I wouldn't know. Nobody's ever paid me up front for anything. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got." He picked up his fork, and Selah thought that was the end of it. The test passed or dodged, lunch beginning like a normal thing between normal people. She should have known better. His fingers moved past the fork. They found the stem of the goblet, and with a motion so unhurried it read almost as gentle, he pushed it off the edge of the table. The crystal hit the stone floor and did not shatter cleanly. It burst, a hard, bright sound, water flung in a fan across the tile, shards skidding out under the table toward the wheels of his chair. He didn't look at the mess. He looked at her. "Clean it up," he said. There it was, the test with its mask off. Selah had heard the tone before, in the mouths of people who'd learned that a person who cleans your floor is a person you own. She'd heard it from the hotel supervisor, who called a supply closet an office. She knew exactly what he wanted, for her to drop to her knees and scrub and prove she'd take it, or for her to draw herself up and refuse and prove she wouldn't stay. 2 doors. He'd built her a room with only 2 doors, and he was waiting to see which one she'd run through. Selah stood. She did not go for the shards near his wheels because he'd ordered her to. She went for them because a wheel rolling over crystal drives a splinter of glass into a tire, and a splinter in a tire strands a man on a bathroom floor at 3 a.m. with nobody to lift him. She'd seen that. She'd lived the other side of it. 8 years of it, in a 1-bedroom in Koreatown. She crouched, not knelt, crouched, weight in her heels, the way you go down when you plan to get back up fast, and she began lifting the biggest pieces away from the chair first, away from the wheels, building him a clear path before she touched a single drop of the water. Her fingers worked fast and careful. the way they'd learned to work around a body that couldn't feel where the sharp things were. She'd cleaned glass off a bathroom floor once, with Marcus already down and bleeding from a fall she hadn't reached in time, and her hands had learned that day that speed and care were not opposites. They were the same skill. She kept the biggest shards moving to the plate. 1, 2, 3, clearing an arc around the matte black frame before she let herself think about anything else in the room. "I didn't tell you to start with the wheels," Do-yoon said above her. "You didn't tell me not to. Look at me." She looked up. From the floor, his face was different, the jaw less like a weapon, the eyes doing something they hadn't done in the study, searching. "Say what you're thinking," he said. The last 4 thought plenty. None of them said any of it. "Say it." Sayla set a shard on the plate she'd pulled down to hold them. "I'm thinking I'll clean this, because I don't want glass in your tires. Not because you told me to." She reached for another piece. "And I'm thinking you already knew that a chair rolls over glass worse than a boot does, which means you didn't drop that cup to test if I'd grovel." She looked back up. "You dropped it to see if I'd notice what you actually needed. Those aren't the same test." The house stayed quiet. Somewhere, a clock she couldn't see marked seconds. "Here's the one thing you need to know about me," Sayla said, still down on the floor, still working, her voice even. "I'll pick up after you all day. I'll do the parts of this job that nobody says out loud, but I don't do it on my knees. I go down to reach the floor and I come back up. Every time. If you need somebody who stays down there, that's a different woman and it's not me." She lifted the last big piece clear of the wheels. "That's my line. You can send me home over it, but I'm not moving it." Do-yoon's hands had gone quiet on the armrests. The provocation had drained out of his posture and left something else, harder to read, a man recalculating. He'd built the room with 2 doors, and she'd walked through a third he hadn't drawn, and he was sitting with that, turning it over the way he'd turned over her boots in the study. "Nobody's said that to me in this house," he said finally, low, "that there's a floor under me and a way back up off it." "Then somebody should've." She set another shard on the plate. "You go down to reach a thing, you come back up. That's not pride, that's mechanics." "Mechanics?" He almost laughed, one breath of it. "You sound like the man who built my chair." "Smart man, then." He was silent long enough that she went back to the water, blotting it with the cloth from his place setting, because it was the nearest thing, and she'd decide later whether that was a firing offense. And then she saw it. Not a shard. Among the shards, sitting in the drying water, something that was not crystal, a small hard disc, dark, the size of a shirt button but heavier looking, a fleck of metal on one face. It had not fallen from the table with the goblet. It had come from inside it, wedged, she understood in a slow, cold instant, up under the base of the glass where a thumb would never find it, where it had sat through however many lunches, close to the head of the table, close to every word spoken there. Sayla's hand stopped over it. She'd changed enough dressings, handled enough small, precise objects, to know a made thing from a broken one. This was made. This was a machine the size of a button, and it had been living in the base of a goblet 3 feet from Han Do-yoon's mouth. She thought of the gate that opened before she touched it. She thought of Kim, in the interview, the too quick. Good. When Sayla swore she had no ties to anyone in the city, no clinic, no network, nobody. She'd read that as a family embarrassed by a wheelchair, hiding a wounded son from people who'd gossip. She'd read it wrong. A family didn't hunt for a stranger, with no connections to protect a secret about legs. A family did that to keep a mouth in the house that couldn't be bought by anyone already in the house. She'd been hired for her isolation. She was seeing now that isolation had a price tag she hadn't been shown. She didn't pick it up. She looked at it, and she felt the whole shape of the house rearrange around her, the gate that knew, the walls with no faces, The piano dusted for no one. The interview that demanded a woman with no ties to anyone in the city. Discretion essential. No clinic references. Pays above market. She'd thought it meant the family was ashamed of the chair. She understood now it meant something with wires in it. Above her, Do-yun had gone still in a new way. He'd followed her hand. He'd seen where her eyes had stopped. "What is it?" he said. Not a question. His voice had dropped all the way down, all the edge gone out of it, replaced by something flatter and more dangerous. Selah crouched there over the water and the glass and the small dark button, 12 years of keeping other people's secrets weighing against 7 days of eviction, and she made herself breathe once before she answered. "You should see this yourself," she said, "before I touch it." He held her eyes a beat, weighing whether the deflection was cowardice or something else. She let him weigh it. She'd learned long ago that the fastest way to lose a proud man was to hand him a decision he hadn't asked you to make. Kim's words in the hall, an hour and a lifetime ago. "Do not decide for him." She hadn't understood them then. She understood them now, crouched over a machine in a puddle, with the whole house holding its breath around her. She moved back on her heels, out of his way, and turned the plate of shards so the little disc sat plain in the light where he could roll close and look. He rolled close. He looked, and whatever Selah had braced herself to see on his face, surprise, fear, the flinch of a man discovering his own house was listening to him. None of it came. What came instead was worse. His jaw set. His eyes went hard and bright, not shocked, confirmed, like a man who'd suspected a tooth was rotten and had just felt the bone give. "Don't touch it," Do-yun said quietly. "Don't move it. Don't say one more word in this room." He put his hand flat on the wheel of his chair, the tattooed forearm flexing, and he looked from the button up to her face, and for the first time since she'd walked into the study, he looked at her like she was a person and not a test. "Get up," he said. "Off the floor. Now." Selah got up, off the floor. The way she'd told him she always would. Her knees ached from the crouch, and she let them ache, and she stood there in her ivory Henley with a plate of broken crystal in her hands, and a machine the size of a button sitting on top of it, and she understood that she had walked 2 buses and a canyon that morning into something that had nothing to do with lifting a man in and out of a chair. Do-yun's eyes came back up to her face and stayed there. Whatever test he'd set at that table had ended somewhere in the last 10 seconds, and a different one had opened, a bigger one, with the door already shut behind them both. "Selah Freeman," he said, and it was the first time he'd used her whole name, slow, like he was deciding to remember it. "You've been in my house for 2 hours. Little less. And you found in 2 hours what nobody found in 18 months. He looked at the disc, then back at her, and the hardness in him had turned to something colder and more precise. A man who had just stopped playing. "That's either very good luck for me, or very bad luck for you." The water was still spreading across the stone between them, thin and bright, carrying its little fan of broken crystal toward the door. Do-yun looked at the little disc on the plate for a long 3 seconds, and then he said one word, "Give it here." Selah did not hand it over. She held the plate level, the shards sliding a half-inch toward the rim, the button-sized device riding on top of them like a seed on ice. "You told me not to touch it, not to move it, not to say another word in this room." She kept her voice flat, the way you keep water flat in a cup you're carrying across a house. "Which one do you want me to break first?" The corner of his mouth moved, not a smile, something drier than that. "Bring it to the study, not this room." He rolled back from the table, one wheel hissing through the thin skin of water still spreading across the stone, and he did not wait to see if she followed. She followed. The study had a door that shut heavy, the kind of heavy that costs money. the kind that eats sound before it reaches the hallway. He pointed at a spot on the desk clear of paper. She set the plate down. He pulled a small folded cloth from the arm of the chair. Already there, already waiting, like he'd known there'd be something to wrap by the end of the day. And he laid the cloth flat and tipped the disc onto it with the end of a pen. He did not use his fingers. He wrapped it 3 times, tight, and pressed it under a paperweight of black stone. There, he said, now it hears a rock. That's not the only one, Selah said. His head came up. You broke 6 glasses this week. She said it plain. She'd counted the base rings dried into the sideboard when she walked past it, the 6 pale circles where 6 wet glasses had sat and sweated and been swept away. Kim keeps replacing them. A man doesn't break 6 glasses in a week because his hands shake. Yours don't shake. She nodded at the wrapped bundle. You were looking. Every glass, every dish with a heavy foot. You were smashing your own house to find that. For a second, he said nothing at all, and in that nothing, the whole thing turned over. She watched him decide something about her, watched a door in his face that had been latched since the hallway swing open just wide enough for one person. 18 months, he said. Somebody in this house has been feeding my schedule to somebody outside it. My meetings, who I see, when I'm alone. He rolled the paperweight a half-turn under his palm. I couldn't say it out loud, because saying it out loud is how they'd know I knew. So I broke glasses, like a temper, like the cripple throwing his tantrum. His voice didn't crack on the word. He used it like a tool, on purpose, to see if she'd flinch. Nobody watches what a tantrum finds. And the water, Selah said, the clean it up. You, he said, that was you. Now he did look at her straight, both those dark eyes level with hers, and there was no apology in it, only accounting. I needed to know what you'd do on the floor. Grovel, and you're the kind that can be bought. Somebody buys you, you kneel, refuse and walk, and you're proud, and proud ones talk. You did neither. He tipped his chin at her hands. You went for the wheels first. You told me why. You drew a line and dared me to fire you over it. A beat. Loyalty test. You passed one you didn't know you were sitting. Selah felt something go tight and hot behind her sternum, and she held it there, held it the way she held the plate, level, spilling nothing. Because here was the shape of it now, clear as the 6 rings on the sideboard. She hadn't been hired. She'd been recruited into a war nobody named at the interview. You could have just asked me to look, she said. I don't know you. You hired me to live in your house and touch your body every day, and you don't know me. She let that land, soft, no heat on it, just true. But you knew exactly which glass had the ears in it. You've known where it was for a while, haven't you? His thumb went still on the paperweight. I suspected the table. I couldn't prove the base. A pause. You proved the base in one lunch. Because you gave me a reason to be down there with my face 6 inches from it. She tilted her head. You didn't test me. You used me. There's a difference. And it's not a small one. There is, he agreed. I used you. And when it worked, I told you the truth in this room, which is more than anyone in this house gets. He didn't look away. That's the only apology you'll get from me. Take it or don't. She took it. Not with a word, with a small nod, the kind you give a man who's just handed you the one honest coin in his pocket. You don't know me now, she said, softer. I know you found in 2 hours what a security sweep missed for a year and a half. He set the pen down. That's a start. She should have said thank you and gone to unpack. That's what the smart girl does, the girl with 7 days on an eviction clock and a check that hasn't cleared. Instead, she heard herself say the true thing. I already spent it. His eyebrow moved. The advance. The number you said at the table. She kept her chin up. It's gone to my landlord tonight. $2,140. plus the fees they stacked on it. It cleared my uncle's rent and mine through the end of the lease. She let that sit. So, if you're about to tell me this house is more than I signed up for, you're right. And I can't afford to walk out of it either. Do-yun was quiet, then low. That was fast. You don't leave money in the room when the room's on fire. She glanced at the wrapped bundle under the stone. Turns out this whole house is on fire. I just didn't smell the smoke till lunch. He almost laughed. She saw it move through him and get swallowed. Then we understand each other. No, Sayla said. We don't. Not yet. I stay, but I stay on terms. The room's temperature shifted. In 18 months, she'd bet, nobody in that house had said the word terms to Han Do-yun and meant it about him. Go on, he said. 1. She lifted a finger. My uncle keeps knowing where I am, a number and a name of a place. That was in my deal with Kim, and it doesn't change because the deal got bigger. Fine. 2. I don't lie for you. If somebody asks me a straight question, I'm allowed to say I don't know, but I don't say what isn't true. You want a mouth that repeats a script, hire a different mouth. His jaw worked. That could get you hurt. Then I'll be hurt, telling the truth. She didn't blink. 3. Whatever I find, I bring to you first. Not to Kim, not to the men in the hall with the earpieces. To you. You're the one in the chair, everybody keeps deciding things around. I'm not going to be one more person deciding things around you. She lowered her hand. You do what you want with what I bring, but I bring it to you. For a long moment, the only sound was the heavy door holding the house out. Kim was right about you, he said finally. Kim's careful about you, Sayla said. She loves you, and she's scared of this place. Those don't cancel out. They just make a person quiet. He looked at the photo he didn't have on the desk. The desk was bare, no faces, same as the hallway, same as the whole pale house, and something old passed behind his eyes and was gone. Terms accepted, he said. Now get out of my study. I have to sit here and pretend I found nothing. She got out. She learned the house the way she'd learned every place since she was 12, by walking it when nobody thought she was working. That first afternoon, she carried a laundry basket she didn't need through 3 wings, so she'd have a reason to be seen going everywhere. And the house started telling on itself. The ramp from the east hall to the garden, the one Do-yun would use to get outside on his own, had a lip at the bottom. Not much. 1/2 an inch of raised threshold, fresh caulk still pale around its edge. Where a week ago, she asked Kim, careful, sideways, there had been none. 1/2 an inch is nothing to a boot. 1/2 an inch to a front caster is a wall. She crouched and ran her thumb along it, and felt where somebody had built a small, deniable prison out of a threshold strip. She tested it. She had a folding travel wheelchair in her head from 8 years of Marcus, every clearance memorized like a phone number, and she pictured the front casters of Do-yun's custom chair hitting that lip at a roll. They'd stop dead. He'd pitch forward against the belt, catch himself on the push rims, look, to anyone watching from a window, like a man who couldn't manage a garden path. She looked up at the windows. 3 of them faced the ramp. One had a camera housing tucked under the eave, small, gray, aimed down at exactly the spot where the casters would stall. Somebody hadn't just built the wall. Somebody had bought a seat to watch him hit it. The good chair in the library, his reading chair, the one with the transfer clearance measured to the inch, had been moved, 8 inches closer to the shelf, just enough that the wheelchair couldn't square up beside it anymore. Just enough that a man who wanted to move himself into it alone would have to ask. She checked the carpet. 2 sets of dents in the pile, the old spot, deep and settled, and the new spot, shallow and recent. Somebody had shifted it and pressed it down to look lived in. "Hi, Sook," she said that evening, in the kitchen, quiet, using the housekeeper's name, the way you touch a nervous animal. "Who cleans in here besides you?" Kim's hands stopped over the rice. A company comes. Twice a week. The young master's uncle set it up. After the last firm. She didn't look up. Why? No reason. Selah dried a bowl she'd already dried. The uncle. That's Han Tae-wook. Kim said the name low and fast, like spitting a seed. Do-yun's father's brother. He handles the family's arrangements. She glanced at the doorway, at the empty hall, at the corners. He is very helpful. Everyone says how helpful he is. Helpful how? Selah said, drying nothing now, just holding the cloth. He orders the vans. He approves the therapists. He took the weight off the boy after the accident. Kim's mouth pressed thin. 18 months ago, the young master could still. There was talk he would take his father's seat one day. Now there is talk he cannot manage a household, let alone a family. She pushed the rice off the heat with more force than the rice needed. The talk did not come from nowhere. Talk is planted, like a garden. Somebody waters it. And nobody waters it more than the helpful uncle, Selah said. Kim didn't answer. Her silence answered. Selah filed the name where she kept the important things, behind the ribs, in the dark. The schedule was the third thing. Kim kept a paper calendar on the pantry wall, because Kim didn't trust screens, and God bless her for it. Selah stood in front of it under the pretense of learning meal times, and read it like a map. Do-yun's physical therapy, moved from morning to late afternoon, when he was tired, when a bad session could be photographed and called a decline. His one standing meeting with an ally named only by initials, rescheduled twice this month, both times to slots that overlapped the therapy, so he could never do both, so he always looked like he was choosing his body over his business, or his business over his body, losing something either way. The handwriting on the changes wasn't Kim's round, careful hand. It was thin, slanted, written by somebody who came in, changed things, and left. Somebody was building a portrait of a man who couldn't cope, frame by frame, threshold by threshold, and the man in the portrait had spent 18 months breaking his own glasses, trying to prove the frame existed. There was a fourth thing, and it was the one that turned her stomach cold. The grab bar in his bathroom, the one he used to move himself off the chair and onto the bench, the single point in that whole marble room where a man's full weight hung on a screw, had play in it. She caught it when she wiped the fixtures down, a habit from Marcus. Always test the bar before you trust the bar. It gave a 1/4 inch of wobble at the top mount. She pulled the towel back and looked at the screws. The paint around the heads was scored. Somebody had backed them out and not driven them home again. Left them 3 turns loose. 3 turns is a man on the floor. 3 turns is a fall that looks like his own weakness. A fall with a camera somewhere to catch it. A fall that says, see, he cannot even be left alone to wash. She drove those screws tight herself, with the flat of a butter knife, before she left the room. She said nothing to Kim. She wrote it in her head, under the ribs, in the dark, with the rest. She brought it all to him that night, in the study, in order, the way she'd promised. The ramp lip, the moved chair, the calendar in a hand that wasn't Kim's, the grab bar loosened 3 turns. She laid it out flat and plain, no adjectives, no leaning on it, just the 6 rings on the sideboard, multiplied across a whole house. When she got to the bar, his hand tightened on the wheel rim, until the knuckles went pale under the fair skin. It was the first thing in 2 days that had reached him past the dry armor. Not the bug, not the calendar, the bar, the place he was most alone and most trusting. Say that one again, he said. 3 turns loose. I tightened it. You can check it tonight. She held his eyes. Whoever did that wasn't trying to embarrass you anymore. That's not a portrait. That's a fall on the marble with nobody in the room. He was silent for a moment that stretched. That's the first time you've told me something and looked away from me while you said it. Because I didn't want you to see my face when I said it. She looked back at him, steady now. There. You've seen it. It's the face of somebody who's angry. I'm a loud one. It doesn't move the line. He listened without moving. When she finished, he was quiet, so long she thought she'd overstepped every term she'd set. Then he said, "The cleaning company. Twice a week. Your uncle set it up." Something closed in his face. Not surprise. She'd learned he almost never did surprise. But a door swinging shut on a room he'd hoped was empty. "Taewook," he said, the way Kim had said it, except in his mouth the seed had a stone in it. "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to. You put a company in his hand, and a hand on my calendar." He rolled to the window that looked out on the dark garden, the garden he couldn't reach alone because of half an inch of caulk. 18 months, I've been the man who can't hold a glass. And it was never the glass. "It was never the glass," Sayla said. He turned the chair back to face her, and for the first time since the hallway, the study, all of it, he asked her a question that wasn't a test. "Why are you still standing here? You could have handed me the bug and gone to bed rich." "Because I've spent 8 years watching a good man get told what he can and can't do by people who think the chair is the whole story." She thought of Marcus by the window, of a lake, of a man standing in a photograph that lived on a shelf with its face to the wall. "I don't have it in me to watch it twice and say nothing." He held her eyes, outside, past the glass, past the sabotaged ramp. The canyon was black, and the gate that knew everyone slept its electric sleep. "Then, we start tomorrow," he said. "You keep walking my house with that empty basket. You bring me what it tells you, and you tell no one, not Kim, not your uncle, not the walls, that I know a single thing." He set his hand flat on the wrapped bundle under the stone. "Let it keep hearing a rock. And you? I keep breaking glasses." That dry not smile again. A man has to stay in character. She was almost to the heavy door when he said her name. The whole of it, the way he had over the water. Sayla Freeman. She stopped. "When you find who's holding the other end of that." He nodded at the stone. "You bring it to me first." "That was term 3, she said. "You already agreed." "I'm agreeing again." His voice dropped under the door's threshold, under the reach of any rock. "Because now it matters." She went out into the pale hall with its walls that held no faces, and she counted the doors from his study to her small room out of habit, and behind one of those doors, a house that had spent 1.5 years convincing a man he was less than he was, had just, for the first time, been outnumbered. 2 against the quiet. She lay down without unpacking. She left the photo of Marcus facing out. And somewhere in the dark of the canyon, a company van was already scheduled for Thursday, and a thin slanted hand was already deciding what would move next. Before she lay down, she texted Marcus the line they'd agreed on. A number, a name of a place, nothing more. He wrote back in under a minute. "You eat yet?" She looked at the 2 words a long time. Somewhere across the city, he was by a window she'd set him next to, worrying about her supper while she sat in a mansion counting the ways a man could be made to fall. She wrote back that she'd eaten, it was even true. Then she turned the phone face down and let the house have her again. She didn't sleep much. She'd stopped needing to, years ago. She lay listening to the big house breathe, mapping it, the ramps and the thresholds, and the reading chair pushed 8 cruel inches out of reach, and the grab bar she'd driven home with a butter knife. And she understood something she wouldn't say to anyone yet. Not to Kim, not to Marcus down the line, not even, quite, to the man in the study. The advance was spent, the line was drawn, there was no walking out of this one. She was in it now, all the way to whatever was at the bottom. The knock came at 6 in the morning, 3 days later, and it wasn't Kim. Sayla was already up, already dressed, the empty laundry basket propped by her door like it lived there now. She opened it and found Lee Sang-ho filling the frame. Square jaw, the little scar riding through his left eyebrow, the earpiece coiled tight against his skull. He didn't say good morning. He said a car was coming at 9, and Mr. Han needed to be downstairs by 8:40, and then he was gone, before she could ask which Mr. Han, and there were 2 of them who mattered, and one who was a ghost, with a report she didn't know existed yet. She carried the basket down the glass corridor. The piano still wore its skin of dust. She counted the doors again out of habit, and the count was the same, and then it wasn't, because the door she needed most was the one that opened onto nothing. Do-yoon was in the studio, blazer on, watch on, the inherited ring catching the low light. He was fast this morning, sharp, the kind of sharp that meant something was riding on the next few hours. The Yoon meeting, he said. Downtown, 9:30. I've been chasing this man for a year. He rolled toward the hall. He was my father's before he was anyone's. If I walk in on time, upright, in control, he remembers who I'm supposed to be. And if you don't, then Tae-wook gets to say it out loud. He said the name flat, like a stone set on a table, that the son can't run a lunch, let alone a house. They moved together toward the central lift, the terminal elevator, the only car that ran clean from the residence floor down to the motor court, the one route that let him board a vehicle without being carried, without hands under his arms, without becoming a thing that got moved. Selah had watched him use it twice. She knew what it meant to him. It meant he arrived as himself. The call button was dark. Do-yoon pressed it. Nothing lit. He pressed it again, a second time, a third, and his thumb stayed on the metal a beat too long, and then he pulled it back and set both hands flat on the wheels and held them there, knuckles rising pale. Selah crouched at the panel. A thread of new caulk sealed the seam where the maintenance plate met the wall. The same fresh silicone she'd found on the garden ramp, the same tidy hand. Someone had opened this in the night and closed it clean. She pressed her palm to the door. No hum behind it. No breath of a car sitting idle. The shaft was dead. It's cut, she said. Not broken, cut, last night. Behind them, a phone buzzed. Kim's voice carried thin from the kitchen, the elevator company, an apology, a technician who couldn't come before 2, a maintenance window nobody had scheduled, a work order signed off by the property manager. And the property manager, Selah already knew, answered to the man who handled the family's arrangements. 8:41. The car was outside, Yoon was downtown, and downtown was 40 minutes with the freeway kind to them, and the only elevator that let Han Do-yoon walk in as a man had died in its shaft at 2 in the morning. Here was the fork. She saw both prongs of it clear as glass. She could pick up the phone and cancel and save him the humiliation. She could call security and have 4 men carry him down the front stairs like furniture. Every caregiver before her had reached for one of those, because both looked like help. She reached for neither. There's another way down, she said. Tell me which one you can live with. He turned his head. Just that. What? There's a service lift. Freight. Kitchen side. Past the pantry. Kim's people bring the deliveries up through it. It's ugly. It smells like onions and bleach, and it opens into the loading bay behind the trash, not the motor court. She held his eyes. Or I make the calls, and you don't go today. I'm not deciding for you which one costs less. You are. Fast. We've got 12 minutes. Something moved across his face that wasn't relief and wasn't pride. It was the particular stillness of a man being handed back a decision that had been taken from him for 18 months. The freight, he said. Show me the freight. They went. Selah went first with the basket, still the basket, because a woman with laundry is invisible, and a man being rerouted in secret is not. Past the cold kitchen, past Kim, who read the situation in one glance and said nothing, only stepped aside and pulled a rolling cart out of the path. The freight lift was a steel box with a folding gate and a button worn to bare metal. Do-yoon rolled in, and the fit was tight, and his shoulder scraped the wall, and he didn't flinch. Selah pulled the gate. "Loading bay's got a lip," she said as they dropped. 2 inches, concrete. Casters won't clear it. There's a service ramp on the far side by the dumpsters. Steeper than code, but it's poured smooth, no seam. You'll take it backward. Big wheels first, and I'll spot the low side so you don't tip. You good backing down a grade? I've been backing down grades my whole life. Then we're fine. The gate rolled up on a concrete cave that smelled exactly as promised. Selah walked the line first, kicked a cardboard flat out of the way, found the ramp, checked the pitch with her eye. The grade was bad, worse than she'd said upstairs, but there was no upstairs left to go back to. "Talk me through it," Do-yoon said behind her. "Not nervous. Working. You've done this. 8 years. My uncle backs down our building ramp every day of his life." She crouched at the low corner and set her hand flat on the concrete, feeling for grit, for slick, for the seam that wasn't there. You go slow. You don't fight the wheels. You let them roll, and you meter it with your palms. If you feel the front end lift, you lean into it, not away. Fear tips people. Physics doesn't. Fear tips people. He almost laughed. You should put that on a card. 9 minutes, Do-yoon. He came off the lift, pivoted, and took the grade backward. Controlled, his forearms working, the tattoo flexing under his sleeve, and Selah walked the low edge with one hand hovering at the frame. Not on it, near it. A hand that said, "I'm here," without saying, "I've got you." Halfway down, a caster caught a pebble, and the chair jagged an inch, and she saw his shoulders lock, and she said, "Lo, you've got it. Ride it out." And he did. He rode it out. He didn't reach for her, and she didn't reach for him. And that was the whole thing between them, in 4 feet of bad concrete. He reached the flat and spun clean, and there was the black car, and Lee Sang-ho standing beside it, with his face doing nothing at all. "Sir," Lee said, "the main lift is being serviced," Do-yoon said. "Ask Tae-wook when he scheduled it." Lee's jaw shifted, one small muscle. He opened the door. Selah didn't get in. This wasn't hers to ride to. But Do-yoon paused at the transfer, one hand on the frame, and looked back at her, and for the first time in the house, he asked her something, instead of testing it. "The Yoon file. On my desk. 2nd drawer. Bring it up when I'm back. I want you to see who I'm dealing with." Then he was in, and the door shut, and the car climbed the drive, and the gate that always knew opened and let him out into the morning. He came back at 4. He came back different. Selah heard it before she saw it. Kim's voice in the kitchen, light in a way it hadn't been, and then Do-yoon, rolling through the glass corridor, with 2 cards in his lap, thick cream stock, embossed. He set them on the studio desk like a man laying down a winning hand. "Yoon," he said, and Baek. He tapped the 2nd card. Baek was in the same building. Yoon called him down when he saw I'd come myself. 2 of them, in one afternoon. They said yes to what? To me, to the transition. He rolled to the window, then back, restless with it. The energy of a man who'd forgotten what winning felt like, and had just been reminded. For 18 months, the story downtown has been that I'm decorative, that the chair runs the man. My uncle plants it at every table, and someone waters it. He stopped. Today, Yoon watched me come in through a loading dock, because someone killed my elevator, and I never mentioned the elevator, and I closed him anyway. He said his father would have liked me. Do-yoon's hand went flat on the desk. That's the first thing anyone said about my father and me, in the same breath, that didn't sound like a eulogy. Selah set the file down beside the cards. 2 allies in one afternoon, Sayla said, after 18 months of one uncle telling the whole town a different story. Baek shook my hand. Doyoon said, "Do you understand what that is?" Baek doesn't shake hands. Baek nods across a room and lets you wonder if he saw you. He put his hand out, and he held it a second longer than a handshake needs. He turned the cards face up, then face down, restless. My father built this with men like Yoon and Baek. When the chair came, the men scattered. Not because they stopped respecting the name, because someone told them the name had no one left to carry it. His thumb pressed the embossed edge. Today, 2 of them came back. On their own feet, to me. "You did that, not me. I found you a smelly box and a bad ramp. You walked in and won the room. You asked me which one I could live with." He looked at her. "Do you know how long it's been since a decision in this house was mine to make?" 18 months, she said. Give or take. Give or take. He almost smiled. Almost. Then he looked past her, and the almost went out. "Now tell me what you found. You've been carrying that basket like it's got something in it besides towels." It did. Under the towels, 3 squares of folded paper, and she laid them out one at a time. "I traced them," she said. The bugs. All of them. She hadn't just found the one in the goblet. She'd been walking the house for 3 days with a phone's flashlight and a cheap magnet, and the patience of a woman who'd cleaned other people's rooms for 12 years and knew where things hide. There's another under the studio bookshelf. One behind the smoke detector in your bedroom. One clipped inside the lampshade in the library. 4 total, counting the goblet. Same model. Little dark disc, metal fleck, adhesive backed. 4. His voice dropped. "In my private rooms. Here's the part that matters." She unfolded the last square, a torn strip of adhesive. The sticky back peeled off a bug and pressed to paper so the print underneath survived. The adhesive on every one is the same. Not tape you buy at a store. Industrial, blue-tinted, the kind that comes on a commercial roll. And it's under things that only get moved when the room gets deep cleaned. The smoke detector, the lampshade, the underside of a shelf. Nobody reaches those but the crew that comes twice a week. The cleaning company, he said it slow. The cleaning company hired by your uncle. Every bug sits exactly where the crew has legitimate reason to put their hands. On the schedule the crew keeps, sealed with adhesive off a commercial roll. Kim told me they come Tuesdays and Fridays. I checked the goblet again. The adhesive there had a fiber stuck in it. Blue microfiber. The rags they use. She flattened the strip against the desk. "How sure are you?" he said. "Not mostly. Exactly. Exact." She tapped the strip. "I peeled the goblet bug's backing first, when you had it wrapped, before you sealed it. The blue fiber was already stuck in the glue. Then I found the shelf one, and it had a fiber too, same blue. Then the lampshade, fiber. Whoever placed these had a microfiber rag in the same hand as the tape. That's a cleaner. A cleaner doesn't work alone in a house like this, without a supervisor's sign-off. And the supervisor doesn't get keys to your bedroom and your studio unless the contract says, private rooms included." She sat back on her heels. "Your uncle wrote that contract. Kim told me he was proud of the terms. Full access, twice a week. It's not 4 people, Doyoon. It's 1 contract. 1 crew. 1 man signs their checks. The same man who signed off on an elevator maintenance window at 2 in the morning." Doyoon didn't move for a long moment. His thumb turned the inherited ring around his finger. Once, twice. When he spoke, it wasn't loud. Loud would have been easier. "Taewook picked my caregivers too," he said. "Every one. He recommended the agency. He interviewed them before Kim did." He looked up. "Except you. You came through a listing with no agency and no references, because Kim went around him. Because Kim knew. Kim knew someone inside had to be bought," Sayla said. So she found a mouth from outside that nobody in here owned, and handed it to me at a table with a bug under the glass. He breathed out, God, she's been fighting him alone in her own quiet way for 1.5 years. Selah didn't answer that. It wasn't hers to answer. She folded the strips back into paper and set them under the paperweight beside the wrapped goblet bug, where the stone had been listening to a stone for 3 days now. There's a second thing, she said, and you're not going to like it more than the first. Tell me. The first day, at lunch, you told me the advance was your father's idea. Money buys loyalty faster than time. She kept her voice level. But you also told the room something. In front of Kim, in front of the mic under the glass. You said I had no references because I had nothing to trade on. You called me a woman off a listing. No history, no name. You said it to sell the lie that I was harmless, that I was nobody worth watching. His jaw tightened. I was protecting you. If they thought you were a professional, they'd have flagged you. Nobody bugs the room of a nobody. I know why you did it. I'm telling you, it's on a recording somewhere, and Taewook has it, and the day he needs to say, you can't even judge the help, he's got your own voice, saying you hired a stranger off the internet with no vetting. She let that sit. You built him a weapon to keep me safe. Now it points at you. Doyoon was quiet. Then he rolled to the desk, pulled a phone from the drawer, not the work phone, his own, and dialed. Yoon, he said when the line picked up. One correction, since we're doing business now, and I don't leave things crooked. A pause. The woman who spotted the schedule problem this morning and got me to you on time. I introduced the idea downtown, months back, that my staff was improvised, convenient. That was my mistake, and it was deliberate, and I'm unmaking it. Selah Freeman has 12 years in home care. She is the most competent person in my household, and I vetted her myself. A longer pause, and something eased in his shoulders. Yes, I thought you'd understand. Good night. He set the phone down. You didn't have to use my name, Selah said. I've had 18 months of other people deciding what's true about me in rooms I'm not in, he said. I'm not going to do it to you. He turned the ring again. The lie was mine. I take it back where I told it. That's the whole rule, isn't it? You don't lie for me. Turns out I shouldn't lie about you either. She almost said something then. She held it. In the corridor, faint, came the sound of the front gate opening for a vehicle nobody had announced, and both of them turned toward it, and neither of them knew yet whose car it was. Outside, the light was going amber over the canyon. Selah picked up the empty basket. She'd walk it back down the glass corridor, past the piano nobody played, and she'd note which car had come through the gate, and she'd bring it to him first, because that was term 3, and term 3 was the only ground she stood on in this house. But before she reached the door, he said her name. Full name, the way he'd said it the first day over a floor of broken crystal. Selah Freeman. She stopped. The cleaning crew comes Friday, he said. Day after tomorrow. Same time, same van, same man's contract. I know. I want to know who's on the other end of the line before they walk back into my house with their blue rags and their commercial tape. He set both hands on the wheels. Not the company. The company's a shell. I want the name of the person who gets the recordings. The one who listens. His eyes came up. Can you find that on a laundry basket? Selah looked at him a long moment. The blazer, the watch, the ring, the 2 cream cards on the desk, the man who'd backed down a garbage ramp at 8:40 in the morning and closed a deal his father would have envied by noon. A van drops the crew and picks them up, she said. The van has a company on the door and a route on a clipboard. The recordings don't stay in the van. Somebody transfers them. Somebody carries them to somebody. I follow the crew Friday. I find where the rags get washed, and where the rags get washed is where the tape gets handed off. She shifted the basket on her hip. It won't be Taewook holding it. Men like that never hold it themselves. It'll be whoever he trusts to listen for him. I find that man. I find the line. And the line runs straight back to the thin hand that moves your furniture at night. And if it's someone in this house, Do-yeon said quietly, then you'll want to be sitting down when I tell you. She met his eyes. You already are. I can find anything in this house, she said. That's the whole reason you're stuck with me. She pushed the door with her hip and carried the basket out into the amber corridor. And in the loading bay 2 floors down, the freight lift sat with its gate up and its light on, waiting. The one route out of the house that the man with the thin slanted hand had never thought worth watching, because it only carried the help, and the help, everyone downtown agreed, was nobody worth watching at all. The gate at the end of the drive was still open. A gray sedan sat in the motor court now, engine ticking as it cooled, and no one had gotten out of it yet. Selah kept the basket against her hip and did not slow down. The gray sedan sat there with its engine cooling, doors shut, glass too dark to read. She walked the long way to the side door, along the stone wall where the cameras had a worse angle, and she watched the car in the reflection of the glass corridor the whole time. Nobody came out of it. That was the part that stayed with her. A car that arrives and empties is a visit. A car that arrives and waits is a message. She learned who it belonged to an hour later, and she learned it the way she learned everything in that house, by cleaning something nobody thought she'd read. The van from the cleaning company came Friday, like the paper said. Selah had the basket. She had a reason to be in 3 rooms at once, and she'd had 2 days to plan the route her feet would take. When the crew pulled up to the loading bay in their pale uniforms, she was already in the service corridor with a stack of towels, folding the same towel twice. 4 of them climbed out. 3 carried caddies, the 4th carried nothing. The 4th one interested her. He didn't touch a rag. He walked the perimeter first. The ramp, the garden door, the window under the eave where the little gray camera lived, and he checked each spot the way you check a pot you left on a stove. Not cleaning, confirming. He had a phone in his hand, and he held it low, screen tipped away, and twice he stopped and typed something short and put it back in his pocket. Selah folded her towel and moved with the caddies, not with him. You never follow the man who's watching for a follower. You follow the thing he's protecting. The thing he was protecting was a small, hard case, black, the size of a paperback, that rode in the bottom of one caddy under a stack of microfiber cloths, the same blue cloths, the same shade of blue whose fiber she'd pulled off the adhesive on 4 bugs. When the crew broke to reload chemicals, the case stayed in the van. The 4th man stayed with the van. She got close enough once. Close enough to see the case had a foam cutout inside when he cracked it to swap something, and the foam had 6 slots, and 2 of the slots were empty. 6 slots. 4 bugs found. 2 she hadn't. I go. 2 more, somewhere she hadn't crawled yet. She wrote nothing down. She carried it in her head to the pantry, restacked towels she didn't need to restack, and counted the van's plate off the wing mirror while she pretended to shake out a sheet. Then she carried the plate, and the case, and the 6 slots, and the man who cleaned nothing, down the corridor toward the study, because that was the term 3, the one she'd made him keep. Everything comes to him first. She never got there. Kim intercepted her at the corner of the kitchen, with a look Selah had not seen on her before, not the careful blankness, something with a pulse under it. Not the study, Kim said, very low. He has someone with him. The gray car. Kim's mouth thinned. The gray car. Who? A firm. Kim glanced at the corridor, at the 2 men in dark suits who had drifted closer to the study door than they usually stood. Security, the one the family keeps on retainer. They came to see him, not the other way. They do not do that. Selah felt the towel in her hands go still. The cleaning crew has a man who doesn't clean. Case in the van, 6 slots, 2 empty, same blue cloth as the bugs. She said it flat, fast, the way you hand someone a live wire. Grip here, not there. The crew that Taewook hired. And now a security firm shows up in a car that won't empty. Kim. It's one hand. The cleaning company is the glove. The firm is the hand. Kim didn't argue. That was how Selah knew she was right. Kim only said, "Then be careful whose hand you reach for," and went back to the stove like the conversation had been about laundry. The study door opened at 4. The man who came out first was not one she knew. Gray suit, thin frame, a way of moving that took up no space, a folder tucked flat under one arm. Behind him came Lee Sang-ho, and Lee Sang-ho did a thing that rearranged the whole house for Selah in half a second. He held the door for the gray suit man, and then, when the man passed, Lee inclined his head, just barely. The kind of nod you give someone above you, not beside you. Lee Sang-ho worked for the Han family. Lee Sang-ho had knocked on her door at 6 in the morning. Lee Sang-ho carried an earpiece and answered to the house. And Lee Sang-ho tipped his head to a stranger from the firm like the stranger was the one who signed the check. Selah stood in the corridor with the basket and let them pass, and kept her face, the face she'd worn folding towels, bored, mid-task, invisible. The gray suit man's eyes went over her once, the way eyes go over furniture, and moved on. Lee's eyes went over her too. His stayed a half-beat longer. She got into the study the second the gray car finally rolled through the gate. Do-yoon was at the window, watching it go. He didn't turn around when she came in. "You saw?" he said. "I saw Lee bow to a man in a gray suit." She set the basket down. "Lee doesn't bow to your family's guests. Lee stands behind them." He bowed to Kang. Do-yoon's voice was quiet, controlled, the knuckle-white kind of quiet. "The firm's principal, my father put them on the house 18 months ago. Cameras, gates, the men in the hall." He finally turned the chair. "The men in the hall answer to Kang. Kang answers to whoever pays the invoice. And the invoice, Taewook signs the invoice." Taewook signs the invoice. Selah pulled the 3 strips of paper she'd folded into the towels and laid them flat on his desk beside the black paperweight, where the wrapped bug had been listening to a rock for 3 days. "Then, here's the rest. Cleaning crew has a 5th man. He doesn't clean. He carries a case with 6 slots. 4 are the bugs I found. 2 are still in this house, in rooms I haven't crawled. Same blue cloth on the adhesive as the case foam. The crew that Taewook hired walked past a security firm that Taewook pays on a day the firm's boss came to sit in your study." For a moment, Do-yoon didn't move at all. Then he rolled to the desk and put one finger on the strip of paper, right on the words 2 empty slots, and pressed down like he could hold the house still through it. "So, it's not leaking out," he said slowly. "It never leaked out. The firm my father hired to protect me is the one wired to my uncle, the guards in my hall, the cameras on my ramp, the men who open my car door." His jaw worked. "I've been paying the people who watch me for him. I've been thanking them." "Lee," Selah said. "Lee's the one inside. He carries it to the firm carries it to Taewook. That's the chain. That's who holds the other end of the grape." The word slipped out. Grape instead of grape-sized, her tongue running ahead of her the way it did when she was locked in, and she didn't fix it, because Do-yoon wasn't listening for grammar. He was staring at the strip of paper like a man reading his own diagnosis. "You found this," he said, "in a laundry basket." "I found it because nobody looks at the woman with the basket." She kept her voice even. "That's why Kim hired me, remember? A mouth from outside nobody in here could buy. Well, here it is, the whole hand. Lee, the firm, Kang, the crew, your uncle, it all fits in a towel. He should have looked relieved. She'd done the thing he'd asked, the thing 4 caregivers before her never did, the thing 18 months of guards never managed. She'd handed him the name of every hand around his throat. He looked at her instead like he was doing math about her. She caught it. She'd been catching things all week. She wasn't going to stop now. What? Nothing. Too fast. Han Do-yun. She used his whole name, the way he'd used hers over the broken glass on the first day. I've fed you everything I found the second I found it. Term 3. You wrote it down. I don't get to have a face right now, but you do? His hand moved on the wheel rim and stopped. And there it was. The tell she'd learned in 3 days. The grip. The thing his body did instead of his mouth. There's a folder, he said. What folder? Kang brought a folder. He wouldn't look at the basket now. It wasn't about the bugs. It wasn't about Tae-wook. Something cold walked up the back of Selah's neck, slow, 1 vertebra at a time. About what? You. The word landed in the middle of the study and just sat there. Selah heard the house around it, the far hum of the kitchen, a guard's shoe in the hall. The gate motor she now knew was wired to a man in a gray suit. She heard all of it, because for a second, she couldn't make herself say anything at all. Then she did, and her voice came out low and fast, the visceral edge she kept for the moments that mattered. Say the whole thing. Don't hand it to me in pieces. You had a security firm, the same firm bugging you. Run me? I told them to run you before I trusted you. Do-yun's words came harder now, defensive. A man who'd rehearsed a defense he already knew was thin. The first day, before the glass, a woman shows up with no agency, no references, no ties to anyone in the city. You told me yourself, that's exactly what a plant looks like. I did what anyone in this house does. I checked. You checked. She set the basket down on his desk. Slowly, deliberately, so her hands would have something to do that wasn't shaking. What did the folder say? Do-yun. He didn't answer. What? Did the folder say? Selah. Everything. First, you wrote it down. She was on him now. Quiet, relentless, the term thrown back in his face. You made me swear it. Everything I find, to you, before anyone. And you had a folder on me for a week and said nothing. So say it now. He said it now. It said you were evicted. His voice dropped. $2,140, 10-day notice, 3 days already gone when you got it. It said you lost the laundry job Friday. Seasonal, no severance. It said the only person listed at your address is a Marcus Freeman, 55, wheelchair, SD, and that he's the reason you turned down the plant in Vernon. He stopped. It said you had 7 days, and it said you took my advance and cleared the debt the same night. Every number was right, every single one. He'd read her whole life off a folder a bugging firm had assembled while she was in his house, folding his towels and pulling his uncle's wires out of his lamps. There's more, she said. She could see it on him. You're a man with one more thing to say, and you're deciding whether to say it. Don't decide for me. That was the whole. Her voice cracked once, and she hated it, and she pushed through it. That was the whole deal. You don't decide for me. Do-yun closed his eyes. When he opened them, he said it plainly. No cushion. I bought the debt. The kitchen hum. The shoe in the hall. The gate. Say it in words a person uses, Selah said. Your landlord. The building. There's a management company behind it, and they had paper on you older than the eviction. Back rent, penalties, the kind of thing that follows you to the next building and the one after that. I had it bought. It's mine now. The lien, the record, all of it. He spread his hands, and for the first time all week, the gesture looked like a man reaching for something, instead of holding it still. It's gone, Selah. You'll never see it again. Whatever happens here, that thing that had 7 days on you, it can't touch you. I made sure it can't touch you. She understood then why he'd looked at her like math. He'd been waiting to see if she'd say thank you. She didn't say thank you. She stood very still in the middle of his study, next to the basket that had carried his enemies' names to him, and she felt the floor she'd built under herself all week. The line, "Not on my knees, I come down and I go back up, always." She felt him lift the whole thing off its footing and hold it in the air like it was his to hold. "You own it," she said. "I ended it. You own it." She heard her own voice go flat and clear, all the speed drained out of it, which was worse than the speed. "You had a firm dig up the worst week of my life. You found the exact number of days I had left. And instead of telling me, instead of handing it to me first, which you swore, which you wrote down, you went out and you bought the leash. And now you get to stand there and tell me it's gone, and you get to watch my face while I find out I don't owe the building anymore. I owe you. That is exactly what it is." She wasn't loud. That was the thing. Everyone in this house was loud with copies of themselves. She'd been quiet the whole week, and she stayed quiet now, and it cut deeper than any shout. "My uncle has been in a chair for 8 years, and the one thing I never let anybody take off him was the part where he gets to say yes. You know why? Because when you can't stand up, the only thing you've got left is the yes. Somebody decides for you, for your own good. They don't help you. They own you. I told you that on day 1 with a broken glass on the floor. You looked me dead in the eye and you said there was a floor under you and a way back up." Her breath came ragged now. "You just took mine." Do-yoon's hands were white on the rims. "I was trying to protect you. Tae-wook has the recording of me lying about you. If this goes bad, if he moves, you're a loose thread, and loose threads in this family get cut. I wanted one thing he couldn't use, one rope he couldn't pull, so you pulled it first. So I made sure nobody could. You made me safe the way you make a bird safe." Her voice dropped to almost nothing. "In a cage, fed, watched, grateful. That one landed. She watched it land." For a long moment, neither of them said anything. The wrapped bug sat under the paperweight, listening to a rock, faithfully carrying silence to the men in the gray car. Then Selah reached into the pocket of her jeans and took out the work phone. The one the house had given her. The one with the number Marcus called, and the number that called her at 19:02 on a Tuesday that felt like a year ago. She set it on the desk beside the black paperweight, screen down, the way you set down a thing you've decided about. "Selah, I'm not doing this next part with your phone in my pocket. You cleared the debt, you spent the advance. You can't." He stopped himself. He heard it as he said it. He heard exactly what it was. His mouth closed. "Say the rest of that sentence," she said quietly. "I dare you. You can't afford to leave. Go ahead. Tell me the money means I have to stay." That's the same sentence. "Do-yoon. That's the leash in a nicer voice. You bought the debt so I'd be safe. Your father paid in advance so I'd be loyal. Your uncle wired the house so he'd be sure. Every man in this family thinks the way you make a person yours is you find what they can't afford to lose, and you put your name on it." She pushed the phone an inch further from herself. "I'm not for sale. I wasn't for sale to Tae-wook, and I'm not for sale to the man who owns my rent." "Where will you go?" It came out of him before he could dress it up, and for once, it was just a question, bare, almost young. "You have 7 days. You had 7 days. There's a man in a chair at home who eats because you don't." The word came out like a blade. "Don't you use Marcus. Don't you dare use my uncle the way they use everything. Marcus would rather I sleep in the car with my spine straight than sleep in your house with it bent." She stepped back from the desk. I'll figure it out. I've been figuring it out since I was 12. I don't need a Han to buy my problems. I need one to stop deciding I can't carry them. She picked up the basket, empty now, the strips of paper already on his desk, everything she'd found already his, because she kept her word even walking out the door. Especially walking out the door. The 2 bugs you haven't found are in this house right now, she said, at the threshold, not turning around. There's a 5th man on that crew. His name's on the van. Kang holds the feed. Lee carries it out. Your uncle pays for all of it. That's everything I know. That's term 3. Kept. She put her hand on the heavy door that swallowed sound. I don't work here anymore, so it's the last thing I owe you. Selah, his voice broke on it. The debt is still gone. Whatever you think of me, that stays gone. I won't undo it to punish you. She stopped in the doorway. She almost turned. She wanted to, and she made herself not, because turning around was how they got you. One more look, one more reason, one more thing you couldn't afford to lose. Then it's a gift, she said. Gifts you don't get to hold over people. Learn the difference, and maybe you'll be worth all the allies you're buying back. A beat. Take care of your uncle's ring. It's the one thing in this house nobody wired. She walked out through the glass corridor with no faces on the walls, past the piano nobody played, past the 2 men in dark suits who answered to a man in a gray car, and none of them stopped her because staff who quit aren't a threat. Staff who quit are just gone. She went out the side door, the staff door, the one that told her on the first morning exactly where she stood in this house. The gate at the end of the drive opened before she reached it. Because the gate always knew. Because the gate answered to Kang. Because even her leaving was something the house watched and logged and carried out in a black case to a gray car. She didn't look back at it. She'd counted the exits her first hour here. She took the one that was hers. Behind her, in a study with a door built to swallow sound, Han Do-yun sat with a work phone face down on his desk, 3 strips of paper with his uncle's whole conspiracy on them, and a rent debt he'd bought to save a woman who'd just walked out, rather than be saved. He put his hand flat over the phone. He didn't pick it up. He'd learned one thing from her in a week that 18 months of guards never taught him, that there's a floor under a man and a way back up, and that you don't get to carry someone else up it against their will and call it rescue. The gate closed behind Selah with the same soft mechanical sigh it made the first day. Only this time she was on the other side of it, on the road down the canyon, with 7 days that were somehow both gone and back. No job, no phone, and a straight spine. Walking toward 2 buses and a man by a window who would take one look at her face and say, before anything else, before she could even get the door shut, "You eat yet?" She hadn't. She'd left before she could be fed. Marcus had the coffee tin open on the table before Selah finished telling him the half of it. He didn't count the $400. He pushed the tin aside and rolled to the drawer under the window, the one with the tape and the old phone charger, and 8 years of paperwork he never threw out. "Sit down," he said. "You've been standing since Koreatown." She sat. The work phone was gone. She'd left it on the studio table before she walked out of that house, because a phone she couldn't turn off was a leash, and a woman who paid her own rent did not wear one. What she still had was in her head. 4 bugs, 1 cleaning contract, a gray camera under the eave, a schedule rewritten in thin slanted ink, and a debt that a man had bought behind her back so he could say he owned the things she'd fixed. "He bought the debt," Marcus repeated. "He wasn't asking. The landlord took the money and told you after." After. Then the money's already spent, and the lie's already told. Marcus set his phone flat between them, screen up. So we stop cleaning his house and start reading it. That was the thing about a man who'd spent 8 years watching people decide things over his head. He knew exactly what it cost to be handed a choice you never got to make. He didn't waste the night being hurt on her behalf. He opened a browser. Here's what Marcus knew how to do that Selah didn't. He'd run a loading dock for 11 years before the accident. He knew shell companies the way she knew transfer holds, by the weight of them, by what gave when you pressed. The cleaning company had a name and a license number. The license number had a filing. The filing had an officer of record, and the officer of record was a management outfit, and the management outfit had one signature that showed up on 3 other filings that had nothing to do with mops. Property services, Marcus said, scrolling. Same signature manages a security vendor. Camera installs. Access control. He looked up. You said gray camera under the eave. Who watches a camera? A firm. This firm. He turned the phone. And who signs their invoices? She read the name twice, the way she read everything twice now. Han Tae-wook. Light gray suit, silver cufflinks, the uncle who handled the family's arrangements and was so very helpful. His name sat on the cleaning contract, the elevator maintenance order, and the security vendor. 3 hands that were 1 hand. But that wasn't the part that made Marcus go still. The security vendor had a field tech assigned to the Canyon account, recurring, 2 years. And the name on the recurring service ticket, the man who badged in at odd hours with a maintenance code that no one scheduled, was Lee Sang-ho. Selah put her hand flat on the table. Lee, who'd knocked on her door at 6 instead of Kim. Lee, who opened the car and carried nothing and heard everything. Not muscle, a pipe. He walked the feed out of that house and handed it to Tae-wook, and Tae-wook watered the talk with it. Reunions, who Do-yoon saw when he was alone. Okay, Marcus said, and his voice dropped into the calm he used to talk her off ledges when she was 12. Now the other thing. The thing you kept saying didn't add up. The bugs recorded. That was the part she'd carried like a stone since the studio. You don't spend 18 months and 4 microphones just to read a man's calendar. A calendar you can steal in an afternoon. They weren't stealing his schedule, Marcus said. They were building something out of him. He'd been on forums half the night. Accident reconstruction, insurance, the ugly little corners of the internet where men in wheelchairs trade notes on being underestimated. He turned the phone one more time. Not a filing now. A clip. Someone had uploaded a board update 11 months back to a private investor portal, and the portal had leaked the way portals do, and there was Han Do-yoon in 3 spliced seconds, a glass shattering, his knuckles white on the wheel rim, a technician crouched at a dead elevator button while he waited. Cut, cut, cut. A man who couldn't manage a hallway. A man you'd never put in his father's chair. She watched the 3 seconds loop. A glass, white knuckles, a crouched technician. It was so clean it looked like documentary. It was a lie built entirely out of true footage, which is the only kind of lie that survives a hard look. Every frame had happened. None of it meant what the cut said it meant. They filmed him, Selah said. They engineered the room, then filmed him living in it. Marcus set the phone down gently, like it was hot. Every trap you found, the sill, the chair, the bar, the elevator, they weren't trying to hurt him that day. They were making a reel. Sabotage the room, record the reaction, cut it to say incapable. He rubbed his jaw. Girl, you didn't find a leak. You found a production. She thought of Do-yoon breaking 6 glasses in a week to hide that he was hunting the mics. He'd been performing incapacity to catch the people performing it for him. 2 men in one house, each pretending to be smaller than they were, and only one of them knew the other was doing it. She stood up. She'd left before she could be fed, and now she wasn't hungry. I have to go back, she said. You quit. I returned a phone. She was already reaching for the olive green bag. That's not the same thing. Do-yoon found the report the same night. And he found it because Selah had taught him, without meaning to, that the ugliest things live where no one bothers to look. He'd stopped assuming the studio was safe. Once you know a man will move a reading chair 8 inches to break you, you remeasure your own house. He went through his father's study while Songjin was in the city, not the desk, which was theater, but the low cabinet behind it, the one with the late mother's things nobody opened, because opening it hurt the old man. Under a folded scarf and a box of her rings, there was a folder 18 months old. It was an accident report. His accident. He'd read the official one 100 times. Wet road, failed brake line, bad luck, God's will, whatever the family told itself at the funeral for his legs. This wasn't that one. This was a private assessment his father had paid for and buried. The brake line hadn't failed. It had been opened. And the car that carried him that night, the black sedan, the lustrous one, had not been the car assigned to him. It had been assigned to Songjin. His father was supposed to be in that seat. Do-yoon sat with the folder in his lap for a long time. He was 30 years old, and he'd spent 18 months believing his own body was an accident. It wasn't an accident. It was a miss. The knife had been thrown at the tiger on his father's neck, and it had hit the son instead, and his father had known, had paid to know, and had hidden it, because a mafia boss who admits his own brother tried to kill him and got the wrong Han, is a boss who has already lost the room. Seongjin hadn't protected Do-yoon. He'd protected the throne. He'd let his son believe he was broken, because a broken heir is a private grief, and a targeted heir is a public war. Do-yoon's thumb found the ring on his own hand, his mother's, inherited, and pressed until the geometry of it printed into his skin. Then he did the thing he'd learned from a woman who wouldn't kneel. He didn't decide alone. He wanted to. Every instinct in him wanted to drive to the city and put the folder on his father's chest. Instead, he took out his phone to call the one person who'd bring what she found to him first. The number he called was a Koreatown landline with a name of a place attached to it. It rang twice. "You already know," Selah said, before he said a word. "I know he was aiming at my father." A breath. "You know something too. I know they filmed you." She was on a bus. He could hear it. The traps weren't the point. The real was the point. Taewook's been selling a movie about a man who can't run his own hallway. The line went quiet in the particular way of two people arriving at the same intersection from opposite streets. "The car was for your father," she said slowly. "The real is for the board. He tried to take the chair by force and missed, so now he's taking it by story. Assembly is Thursday." Do-yoon's voice changed, not louder, cleaner. "Full board, the vote that names the next chair. Taewook has spent 18 months making sure that when I roll into that room, I roll in as the clip." "Then don't roll in as the clip." "How?" She looked out the bus window at the lights of a city that had tried to cost her everything and hadn't quite managed it. "Contract first," she said, "before anything else. I don't come back as staff, and I don't come back as a favor you bought. I come back as a partner, written, signed, my name on it, my terms, my rate, and the thing you did with my debt, reversed on paper, so nobody can ever say you own me." "Done." "Say it slower." "It's done, Selah. Draft it. I'll sign whatever you put in front of me." Then, quieter, the thing that cost him. "I bought the debt so you couldn't leave. That was the trap in my own house I didn't see. I'm asking you to come back to a door that's open." She let that sit exactly 1 second. "Thursday," she said. "Bring the goblet." Thursday, the family tower downtown put its best face on. Fresh flowers, mirrored elevators, a directory board that lit up when you touched it. Assembly day. Every man who'd ever done business with the Han name filed toward the top floor to watch a chair change hands. The elevators died at 9:12. Not all of them. The 3 that reached the assembly floor. Selah, coming across the lobby in the ivory Henley with a leather folio under her arm, watched the boards go dark one by one and didn't slow down. On the wall, a security guard swiped a credential and got a red light. Do-yoon's name had been pulled from the access system that morning. A signature had authorized it. Everyone in the family knew whose. Tae-wook stood near the reception desk in light gray, watching the elevators fail, with the face of a man watching weather he'd ordered. When Do-yoon came through the doors, Tae-wook's mouth did something that wanted to be sympathy. "The building's having trouble," he said. "We'll get you up as soon as we can. No one wants you carried." That was the whole play in one sentence. Make the man wait in the lobby while the board voted upstairs. Let the last image of Han Do-yoon be a Heir stuck at the bottom of his own tower, unable to reach the room where his name was decided. Selah stepped past Tae-wook without looking at him. "There's a service route," she said to Do-yoon, low, the way she'd said it in the canyon over a dead elevator once before. "Freight car, east side, past the catering staging. Steeper than code. Concrete, no seam. Which one can you live with?" "That one." "Then that one." Kim Hee-suk was already at the freight doors. She'd come in through the kitchen entrance out of habit, the way staff do, and habit had put her exactly where they needed her. She held the car. Lee Sang-ho moved to intercept, one hand rising, and Marcus Freeman rolled his chair straight into the man's path and stopped there, brake locked, a 55-year-old dock manager in a plaid shirt taking up the whole width of a hallway. "You're the field tech," Marcus said pleasantly. 2 years, canyon account, odd hours. Funny thing for a security guard to badge in when nobody scheduled him. He didn't move his chair. "Stand there as long as you want, son. I've got nowhere to be, and neither does he now." They went up the freight car. Selah, Do-yoon, Kim, the leather folio, while Lee Sang-ho stood locked behind a wheelchair. He couldn't get around without laying hands on the man in it, and laying hands on a black man in a wheelchair, in a lobby full of witnesses, was the one thing Tae-wook's story could not survive. The assembly room went silent when the service door opened instead of the elevator. Han Song-jin sat at the head of the long table, graphite suit, the tiger showing above his collar. He'd expected his son to arrive as a problem. His son arrived rolling under his own power through the door that carried the help, with a black woman on his left and the housekeeper on his right, and he did not look like a clip. Do-yoon didn't make a speech. He'd learned that from her too. He set a slim black paperweight on the table and beside it a folio, and he opened the folio. "Recordings," he said to the room. 4 microphones, 1 contract. My uncle's signature on all of it. Payments from a management company he controls, to a security firm, to a field technician who fed my schedule out of my house for 18 months. He laid the pages down one at a time, the way Selah laid glass out of a chair's path, worst first, and a reel, cut from those recordings, and from traps built into my rooms, a movie about a man who can't manage a hallway. He looked around the table. "You've all seen it. He mailed it to you." Tae-wook came through the door then, breathing hard from the stairs. Too late. The room was already looking at the pages. "This is theater," Tae-wook said. "He's unwell, he's paranoid. He's coached by the hired. Whose car was it?" Do-yoon said it to his father, not to the room, and the room heard it anyway. Song-jin's hand closed on the table edge. 18 months of a decision he'd made alone, to protect a chair, sat in his throat. "The brake line was opened," Do-yoon said. "The sedan was yours. He aimed at you and hit me, and you paid a man to tell you so, and then you locked it in Mother's cabinet and let me think I broke myself. He wasn't loud. That was what made it land. You didn't hide it to protect me. You hid it because a boss who got missed looks weak." I've looked weak for a year and a half, so you wouldn't have to for a week. The whole table was watching Songjin now. A mafia boss lives and dies by the room's belief that he sees everything. He had one move that kept the room, and it was the true one. The car was mine, Songjin said. His voice was gravel. The line was cut. My brother did it. He looked at Taewook the way you look at a dog you raised. And I lied about it. To all of you. I let my son wear it. He stood. I'm done wearing it too. Taewook lost everything in the next 4 minutes, and none of it was dramatic. That's how it goes at that level. No shouting. Cufflinks catch the light, while a man realizes the vote in the room has already turned, that the security firm is his, and therefore the crime is his, that the payments have his signature, and the recordings have his voice, and the reel he built to bury his nephew is now the thing burying him. 2 men in dark suits, real ones, his brothers, walked him out the service door, the one that carries the help, the one that carries what the house would rather not see. The board named Do-yoon Heir before lunch, confirmed, in the light, in the room, arriving by his own route. Sayla did not stay for the part where powerful men shook her hand. She'd gotten what she came for, and it was folded in the leather folio, a contract, signed before any of it, her name and her terms, the debt reversed on paper. She left with Marcus. They took the bus. The service she opened 3 weeks later had a name Marcus talked her into, and a mission she'd been writing in her head since a crystal glass hit a stone floor. Consent-focused care. The whole idea in the tagline, nobody gets moved, cleaned, lifted, or decided for without being asked first. She trained the first 4 caregivers herself. She taught them the hold that gives a person a way to say yes. She taught them to get down to reach the floor and to stand back up, always, and never on their knees. The photo of Marcus standing at a lake, before the accident, sat on the desk in her one small office, and under it sat a second photo she'd taken herself. Marcus at the tower, brake locked, holding a hallway. Do-yoon came in the fall, months later, on a Tuesday, because he knew she took new clients on Tuesdays, and he didn't want to jump the line. He set something on the desk. A goblet. No, the base of one, the crystal foot and stem of the glass he'd once shoved off a table to test a woman who wouldn't be tested. Restored. Clean. She turned it over. Under the base, where a small, dark disc the size of a shirt button had once been seated, there was nothing but glass and light. Here's a room now, he said. Just a room. You had it rebuilt. I had it made honest. He put his hands flat on the arms of his chair, the custom black one, the tattoo showing at the forearm, and he didn't reach for her, and he didn't decide anything. There's a place downtown, good food, terrible view, which I'm told is the point of eating instead of looking. He met her eyes. I'm not asking you to come. I'm telling you the door's open, and the choice is yours. Dinner, if you want it. Sayla Freeman looked at the honest glass, and at the 2 photographs, and at the man who'd finally learned that the whole thing was never about the glass. I want it, she said. She set the honest glass down between the 2 photographs, where it caught the afternoon, and threw it back clean. No dark disc under it to swallow the light. Tuesday's my day, though. New clients. I don't jump my own line for anybody, and I'm not starting with you. Something moved across his face that on any other man she'd have called relief, and on him she'd learned to call respect. Wednesday, he said. Wednesday. She reached for the olive green bag on the back of her chair, and she stood up on her own, the way she always did. Down when the work needs it, up again after, never once on her knees. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Tell me, K-Fam, have you ever knelt to protect someone who first tried to break you? Have you ever found the one small thing, hidden in plain sight, that proved you weren't crazy to trust your gut? And would you have walked away from a debt someone paid just to own you? Mark my words, K-fam. And if you believe in stories about dignity, betrayal, and autonomy, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel